Hi, folks. I'm literally Hitler. And I'm in the doghouse because a bunch of retarded faggots said that I use offensive language. And they turned that into a Hitler thing. Now, they were taking a quote from my show, the Gavin McInnes show, and it's a comedy show, but I don't want to get into this rut of saying, I was just kidding. But what I think a lot of people have to understand about this new movement where we talk in public like we talk in bars is it's like Bill Burr. Like, he's not lying, but he's being hyperbolic. Like, if I see a bunch of Scandinavian politicians wearing pussy hats, I go, I want to join ISIS now. I want to kill them. I don't literally want to join ISIS, but you get the vibe. So anyway, I said that I was getting anti-Semitic in Israel, meaning I'm getting annoyed by Jews, meaning I wish they were less apologetic and more patriotic, and they love the wall more and they love Trump more. But that becomes Nazi. We're in an epoch now where the bar is very low on Nazi. Trump is a Nazi. 50% of the country is a Nazi. So yeah, I'm a Nazi. But specifically, I had said right-wing nut jobs think the Treaty of Versailles was made by Jews. They cut out the right-wing nut jobs in these articles and just said, he says the Treaty of Versailles was made by Jews. Anyway, my wife's very mad at me, and there's some tension in the home. And I thought this would be a fun time to go over. I believe I have 15 examples of my controversies over the past. And I've been dating my wife all of these controversies. And I think this poor woman, this suffering spouse, has endured all of these. So let's go back here. For me, it started in 2001 with 9/11. I started caring about politics. I've heard the same thing of Pamela Geller and Anthony Cumia, where they went, what's been going on here? What have you guys been up to? Because I just saw the World Trade Center collapse. So it sounds like you guys aren't really paying attention to what you're doing. So we start looking into things like Islam. And I read Death of the West in 2001, and it changed me. I did an article in my old magazine about the new conservatives, and said that this was becoming a thing. I think I was exaggerating a tiny trend, but it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. But anyway, in 2002, we did an interview with the New York Press, me and my former coworkers, and I dressed as a Nazi skinhead. My co-founding compatriot dressed as a soccer hooligan, and another guy dressed as a victim of a hate crime. And so that was the context of the interview. We're dressed like that. And it works when you see the article with the picture, because we're Zeke Heiling and he's holding a bloody bandage to his head. But now in the archives, that picture's gone. So you just see me saying, when they were bitching about Williamsburg hipsters, the guy we were talking to was one of these insufferable, self-hating white guys who was saying, don't you hate being in Williamsburg around these hipsters? And I said, at least they're white. I didn't mean that, but, we get into a context rut where you look like you're backpedaling when you say the context, but the context is relevant. Anyway, that was a big hullabaloo, and there was a letter writing campaign, and my coworkers had to apologize on my behalf. Then in 2003, I wrote for, I think Pat Buchanan was running at the time, Tacky was too, the American Conservative. I wrote an article called Hip to be Square, where I talked about how Terry Richardson and Vincent Gallo and what I called the new conservatives at the time were sick of liberal dogma. And this was kind of the progenitor for the alt-right at the time. This is 2003 now. Then that same year, another doozy, in the New York Times, I said the following. This was a bad one. I love being white. I think it's something to be very proud of. I don't want our culture diluted. We need to close the borders now and let everyone assimilate to a Western, white, English-speaking way of life. I think I remember my wife sort of letting the paper fall on her and just bawling her eyes out. She's not white, and they're not as strong as the rest of us. But I should have said Western. I shouldn't have said white. But in retrospect, that was written by Vanessa Gregoriadarius, who did that article about Mattress Girl for New York Mag. And she said the editor kind of fucked her over on that, and she said I was never working for the Times ever again after that. But I should have focused on Western, but, I mean, Western culture is pretty darn white. Sorry. But I was also talking about my coworker who was a Pakistani who wears a jihadi ring, and I was saying to the writer, why don't you juxtapose the way we feel? Like, he's brown and proud, and I'm don't agree with him on that. But they took out that part and just left my part. And again, I'm not trying to apologize for all this. I'm just saying that when you isolate the context, it seems a lot more incendiary than it is. But even devoid of context, you go, yeah, that's kind of true. Anyway. Then I was good for about a decade. I managed to avoid getting in trubs for about a decade. I got into advertising and made a lot of money doing that. But then I kept writing for Tacky, and I did an article in 2013 called Tackling Asian Privilege, where I just took an article about white privilege and changed the word white to Asian, and it still worked perfectly. That made the Asians very mad, and they are a tour de force on the World Wide Web. I remember I judged the air guitar championships many years ago, I think 2008, and I said Asians kept winning it. And I kept saying, these guys bombed Pearl Harbor. Why are we letting Nips carry the air guitar championship every year in a row? And then the Asian American Society wanted to fight, and they're very, it's like a tsunami, ironically, of internet yelling, and then it's gone. So that one didn't really stick, but it was a big deal at the time. And then in 2013, this one got a lot of legs. I was arguing with some University of Miami School of Law professor, Marianne Franks. I think these people are fake. They're not real lawyers. They're just, administrators who go there and work at a law school, and they get to pretend that they're heavy shit lawyers. And I was saying most women would be happier at home. And I was with all liberal professors, and I was talking about a study at the University of Pennsylvania with 800 women that said that, yeah, since feminism, women have been less happy. Now a lot of this stuff has just become a boring fact. I'm truly ahead of my time with most of these. But they called my studies I was citing fantasy studies, and that pissed me off. And then Marianne Frank said, you would be in a world, your ideal world is a place where women can't work. And that pissed me off because she was straw-manning my argument. Obviously, I don't want women not to be able to legally work. Like, what is there, a paddy wagon that comes by and removes women from cubicles? They have little false mustaches on, and we tear them off. Hey, you're abroad. And then we take them home. And what happens? They sneak back to the cubicle? How do we enforce this? So I called her a fucking idiot!
Well, I do think it's interesting because Gavin is, in fact, presenting what's wrong with masculinity right now. It's this insistence that things have to be a certain way. What does his evidence for that?
I'm not insisting anything, you fucking idiot.
Oh,
Gavin,
see,
take it
exactly.
down.
This is what masculinity looks like.
And that was a big deal. I lost some female friends with that one, actually, which was a weird one. Again, wife wasn't happy. Then in 2014 now, so there was a real 13-14 after that 10-year span of peace. It sort of like goes with Muslim attacks, right? There's like a surge of terrorism, and then it dies down for a while. I said short hair is rape. Now, what I was talking about is when women have their hair short and you're doing them from behind, you look down and you see like your buddy when he was 10. And I go, that's the way you guys are loosely throwing around the word rape. That's kind of rapey for you to turn yourself into a 10-year-old boy. That caused a lot of hullabaloo, but I think it's a great example, too, of how this willful ignorance the left uses when they hear you talking. And they go, so you think it's rape, right? And you go, yeah, I want someone to go to jail for 15 years for cutting their hair. Do you really believe I believe that? No, you don't. You're just so desperate for bad guys that you have to fabricate them out of thin air. That's why I said the demand for Nazis doesn't meet the supply. They get so excited when someone uses poo to draw a swastika backwards. They have a big ceremony with rabbis and clerics and people playing acoustic guitar. That's how desperate they are. And by the way, I've even had that quote taken out of context where they go, he thinks there should be more Nazis. When I did that talk at NYU, they go, he said we demand to have more Nazis. And you go, wow, that's so meta. You're taking my quote about there not being enough Nazis and you're making a Nazi out of that. Anyway, 2014, there's a lot here. The same year I said I hate Neil deGrasse Tyson. I was mad at him for bitching about shoplifting and how they would look at him weird.
They should put him on television, though. That's the problem.
Okay, let's watch this and then we'll talk.
Tell you who he shouldn't be on TV.
And he talks about things like, when I was young in New York, I would get racially profiled when I go into stores. Back then, he looked like he was in the Warriors. He had a huge afro and a cut-off shirt, and New York was a war zone. Sorry, you fit the profile. And all
How did we get into this? I want to talk about aliens.
All he does is complain about his lot in life.
What?
I've met him a few times since, and I realized I don't hate this guy. I like this guy. I hate his fans. And I'm taking him out of context. They had asked him if it was weird being black and being a scientist, and he brought up that story. And I was isolating it. But I guess my real anger was Chris Hardwick was talking about him once, and he's saying, oh, his energy just fills the room. And I thought, that's racist. You guys are so excited about a black scientist that it's the bigotry of low expectations. Why don't you just accept him as a scientist and not masturbate because he's black? That bothers me. And that, by the way, got turned into, you don't think he can be a scientist just because he's black. And when I hear yelling like that, I go, man, you were desperate for a Gargamel to hate the Smurfs. You were desperate for a cartoon villain, because no one thinks that. No one goes, God damn it, that guy's a great scientist. I wish he wasn't black. 2014, I also said that I said that poor people are scamming food stamps, and no one in this country's hungry. And I said that half the time Dominicans, for example, in New York, they just use the food stamp food to sell it back to DR, and they'll open a bodega down there. In fact, in my neighborhood, they have blue buckets at the store that you fill with your food stamp food, and they ship it to DR, to Dominican Republic. And Democratic activist Jamu Green said, no, people are starving in this country. And I said, why are they so fat?
But we cannot demonize food stamps and the children who are depending on them. The millions of
Have you seen them? They're gigantic.
No, you can't point to the surfer and point to the Dominican Republic person who's doing this.
America. We're
absolutely not. Talk to a hungry child.
I'd
talk
love to
their
meet one.
mother who cannot afford
I can't talk to them. They're too big. They can't get off their chair.
Because you're slightly privileged, I would think, that you're not coming in contact with people who are hungry.
Have you ever
it
seen a
exists in
skinny,
America.
poor American child? Then Media Matters took that, or Ross Doyle or someone, and took it and said, Fox News guest claims blacks use food stamps as fat pill. What? I contacted the writer and I said, I'm not going to sue you. I'm going to beat you. I'm going to beat the shit out of you. Actually, I met Jim Green in the green room. I met Green in the green, and I said, you know what I should have said? I should have said, don't talk to me like that. You don't know me. Thinking she would think it was funny, and she goes, you don't have a right to talk about these subjects, sir, because you've never felt what it is to be black. And then in the green room, I was yelling, no, that's not how it works. You can talk about football if you don't play football. You can talk about facts if you weren't there. We talk about World War II. I can talk about food stamps. Anyway, it was a tense scene that you weren't privy to. But that was a pretty short-lived one. I mean, I should probably put a star rating on each of these because 4 or 5 of them were doozies. The trans one was the dooziest. That was 2014 also, and I just said, they're not women, they're mentally ill gays. And the White House was kicked out of Wikipedia for that. I mean, I had a show on Discover UK that got shut down. It was major. And I had an ad agency at the time, and the guys I work with were freaking out because they're not part of this world. They do ads. So they go, we're going to put you on leave. And I was like, whatever makes you feel better, guys. We're still bros. That was not tense at all. But we were owned by a bigger agency called Havas, a French agency, and we weren't making the money they wanted us to make. They had bought us for a fortune. We had golden handcuffs. And they were looking for an excuse to unload us, and this was a great excuse. I considered suing them, but I would have made like $100,000. It would have cost me $99. But 2014 was a doozy. And again, my wife's a fag hag, so she was just bawling her eyes out for that one. If you have a time machine, don't kill my wife in the crib and then seduce me and marry me. It's not fun being my wife. And actually, while she cries and stuff, and I get put in the doghouse, I think it must be fun to be a fag. I mean, if I had a husband through all this, and there was the white thing in the New York Times or this trans thing, my gay husband would have went, "Oh, dude, this is blowing up. Like, this is tense. Our friends are freaking. You really..." It would be more like the end of Animal House with the Deathmobile. It'd be like, Gavin did that crazy stuff. But, you know, when you're in love with a woman, things are a little less hilarious. Then 2015 was a doozy. I was on Hannity. A lot of these are on Hannity, actually, the past year. And I was saying to Tamara Holder, you'd be much happier at home. And she tried to say the same thing that HuffPo woman said, where I don't want to allow women to work. And I said, that's bullshit.
Most women are happier at home. They are pretending that they like working, and they're not making money because they don't stay all night at the office. They don't go the extra mile. They don't work all weekend. You're making a mistake. You would be much happier at home with a husband and children.
Oh, boy. That blew up, too. Now, a lot of these, I go, oh, that was unfortunate. Like with the New York Times thing, I wish I'd said Western and not white. But with that one, I read it, I see it out of context, I see a few words just taken and put somewhere else, and I go, yeah, that's pretty much it. Like on the deplorable list, when they were talking about, they had a target list of why they should kill me and why they should pepper spray me. And I read their quote, and it was mostly from this thing. And I read it and went, yeah, that's pretty much what I said. Yeah, you nailed it. You guys got it. So that blew up. It became a massive meme. I mean, that article, I haven't been on Hannity since. And that one segment has been seen millions and millions and millions of times on YouTube. It's had a life on Facebook, and it's embedded everywhere. I actually saw Tamara Holder was banned from Fox News. I may have deeply traumatized her. But the rumor I heard recently was that she's got a man. Talk to the hand, because she has got a man. And she doesn't do this shit anymore. Which kind of proves my point, that once you get a man, you'll be happy and you won't have to go appear on Hannity and talk about pot. Vindicated. 2016, this was one. I called Jada Pinkett Smith a monkey actress. Now, the context here is she was talking about Oscars so white, and she was boycotting the Oscars, which was dumb because the awards go to blacks disproportionately more than they appear in the population. So there's no need for your stupid videos, Jada. But I was talking about one of my kids who thought that when he sees a documentary with monkeys in it, it's the same monkeys. And he goes, I like this monkey actress. So I said, yeah, that's Jada Pinkett's my favorite. I didn't say that to him, but I said that as a joke on my fucking comedy show. And that became, McInnes thinks that black people are monkeys. And when some geriatric student on Tucker's show, he said, this man thinks blacks are less than human. Again, you want someone to think that so bad that you take a dumb Jada Pinkett Smith joke, which, by the way, in retrospect, I still think is fairly funny. I don't regret it. In the context of the time, that was pretty witty. And he takes it to say he thinks black people are monkeys.
On campus, they bring someone outside of the pale of any rational discussion who calls,
So I wonder, I'm gonna do
calls an
irony.
African American a monkey.
Okay,
that's what the Republican students
keep
bring on
alleging
campus.
that. Hold on, wait, stop. I don't want to get into a defense of a specific writer's.
If that's the bad guy you're fighting, you got to change your bad guy. Make him like, people don't think that black people are represented in the Fields Math Award because it's natural. That's a more realistic bad guy to find. The monkey guy, there's like 7 of those. And they also hate Greeks and Spaniards and British people. All right. Now we're up to 2017. I'm not sure this is controversial. I mean, I don't feel bad about this. I was pepper sprayed at NYU for a talk where I was going to say Trump's not so bad and Hitler doesn't really exist. And these Holocaust deniers that you think are around every corner don't exist. By the way, the New York Post changed that to my controversial views about the Holocaust. Here's a tip, folks. If you're remotely a controversial dude, just don't ever say the word Holocaust. Just don't say it at all. You can say nut jobs deny the Holocaust. They will remove the word nut jobs from your quote. So just don't go near it. 2017, I punched the guy at Deplorable. I don't feel bad about that. I mean, this was the guy who made the list where it was attack this guy, and I heard him navigating our attack and then punched his phone.
McInnes licked the man's face.
You just licked me. Did you see that? He just licked me.
Oh, he licked
and
me.
grabbed me.
He licked me. Police! Police!
And then the next guy I see was walking in front of us trying to start something saying, you want to go?
Get the fuck out of here, man. You want to fucking down? Yeah, I did that.
I'm not even sure that should be on this list. 2017, this year now, I said Muslims, big problem with them is inbreeding. And no one ever talks about this, but they have a major problem with inbreeding. They are marrying their first cousins again and again and again, and that makes your evolution go backwards. I'm glad I said that on Joe Rogan's show, which is a relatively liberal show, because they pull up, tons of evidence there live, so you can see. And by the way, if you ever want to talk about first cousin marriage in the Muslim community to people who can't handle it, always use sources that are Muslim. Find a funny name like Raji Mankasanskanar, and that's a lot more palatable to them than some, white source. It's a huge problem if you look at Pakistani news or the Pakistani community in London. Stick with that. You really got to spoon feed these people the truth, because hate facts will drive people nuts. As I've been learning since we started this mess in 9/11. That's when it all started. And that brings us back to the Nazi stuff. A lot of this stuff is just me saying hate facts and you being willfully ignorant and taking it out of context. I think we have a war on free speech in this country. And when I say free speech, I mean normal speech, the way you talk in bars, where they get to say die cis scum and white people should be executed and all this stuff, and white men are the reason behind everything evil in the world, and Christians all need to die, and we can ignore Christian genocide going on in the Middle East. But then when it's our turn to say something, we have to go, and this is literally true in college. White men will get up and go, hey, I just want to say that I have a lot of privilege and I'm middle class and I don't have the right to be talking, but like the Seinfeld. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I don't think that that's the way we should be talking. I'm going to keep being remarkably offensive because I'm just really talking the way you talk, but I'm not being shy about it. This world's becoming a dangerous place, and the only way to navigate it is by not being careful, not watching what you say, and being really fucking offensive. Hey guys, thanks for checking out that video. I do a show that you gotta pay for, subscribe to. It's called How's It Going, Eh? And I talk to interesting people about interesting stuff, and it's very serious and educational and political and smart. You can subscribe by clicking here.